My mother returned after 3 years of silence, not to apologize, but to dance on my father's grave and demand a payout. She walked back into our lives during a historic blizzard, claiming she was a victim of financial abuse. Yet she was wearing a fur coat while my 14-year-old sister collapsed in the snow from neglect. I am still shaking as I write this. For 3 days, trapped in our frozen home, I watched the woman who gave birth to me manipulate my grieving brother, telling him that I was a greedy dictator hoarding an inheritance that did not exist. She looked me in the eye and demanded $50,000 to leave us alone. She wanted to sell the only home we have ever known to pay off her secret gambling debts, all while blaming my dead father for her misery. How do you choose between being a good daughter and being a protector? I had to make the hardest decision of my life. I did not just kick her out with $0. I had to become the monster she always accused me of being to save my siblings from her destruction. But now that the police have taken her away and the house is quiet, the guilt is eating me alive. Am I a bad daughter for setting a trap that sent my own mother to prison? Or would you have done the exact same thing to save your family? My name is Charlotte Evans. I am 24 years old now, working as a paralegal in a glass-walled office in downtown Chicago, living a life that is meticulously organized, quiet, and safe. But the story I need to tell you, the story that still wakes me up at 3 in the morning with my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, did not happen here. It happened 6 years ago, back when I was 18, in a sprawling, drafty, Victorian house on the outskirts of Duluth, Minnesota. Back then, my title was not paralegal. It was sister. It was guardian. It was the girl who had to grow up overnight because the adults in the room had either died or decided that parenting was an optional hobby. I remember the date clearly. It was November 24th. The meteorologists had been screaming about a historic blizzard for days, naming the storm like it was a celebrity, tracking its path with breathless excitement. Outside our windows, the world had already vanished. The sky was not gray but a heavy, bruised purple, and the snow was not falling. It was being driven horizontally by a wind that shrieked through the eaves of our old house. We were miles from the nearest neighbor, isolated by a long, winding driveway that was rapidly disappearing under 3 feet of white powder. Inside, the house felt less like a home and more like a fortress under siege. I stood in the hallway, staring at the thermostat. It read 62 degrees. I reached out, my fingers hovering over the dial, wanting desperately to turn it up to 70, to let the warmth flush out the chill that seemed to have settled permanently in my bones since Dad's funeral 4 months ago. 70 degrees costs money. I thought 62 is survivable. I pulled my hand back. This was my life now, a constant mental calculation of every penny, every kilowatt, every calorie. I wrapped my oversized cardigan tighter around myself and walked into the living room. Liam was sprawled on the rug, 16 years old and radiating that specific teenage mixture of boredom and hostility. He was thumbing through his phone, the blue light illuminating a face that looked so much like Dad's. It hurt to look at him sometimes. Sophie, my sweet 14-year-old sister, was curled up in the armchair by the fireplace, reading a paperback. The fire was dead, nothing but cold ash. I had told them we needed to save the wood for when the power inevitably went out. You are being too hard on them. A voice in my head whispered, "You are turning into a prison warden." I ignored the voice. I did not have the luxury of being the cool big sister. I was the one holding the dam from bursting. I was the one who knew exactly how much was left in the bank account and the number was terrifyingly low. Sophie looked up, shivering slightly. Charlotte, can we please turn the heat up? Just a little bit? I can see my breath. I felt a spike of irritation, sharp and hot. It was not anger at her, but it felt like it. It was the pressure, the crushing weight of being the bad guy because there was no one else to be the responsible guy. Put on another sweater. Sophie, I said, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. We do not know how long this storm will last. If the propane runs out, we have zero heat. Do you want to freeze to death or just be slightly uncomfortable? Liam snorted without looking up from his phone. You act like we are destitute. Char, Dad had life insurance. We are fine. You are just a control freak. I clenched my fists in my pockets. My fingernails dug into my palms. You have no idea. Liam, you have absolutely no idea that the life insurance money barely covered the funeral and the debts Mom left behind before she vanished. You do not know that I am 2 months behind on the property tax. But I did not say that. I could not. Dad made me promise, on his deathbed, literally gasping for air, that I would protect them. He wanted them to have a childhood. He did not want them to know that our mother was a gambling addict who had bled us dry before running off with a fitness instructor named Rico 3 years ago. So, I swallowed the truth. It tasted like bile. I am just trying to be careful, I said, forcing my voice to level out. I am going to the kitchen to check the pantry. I walked away before I could scream. The kitchen was freezing. I began to organize the canned goods for the 3rd time that day. 4 cans of tomato soup, 3 cans of beans, a box of pasta. It was enough for a week if we rationed. I stared at the expiration date on a can of corn, my mind drifting to the stack of unpaid bills hidden in the bottom drawer of Dad's desk. Final notice, past due, urgent. The red stamps were like wounds on the paper. And then, I heard it. It was not the wind. It was a heavy, rhythmic thudding against the front door. I froze. The house went silent. Even Liam stopped tapping on his phone. We looked at each other from across the hallway. We lived at the end of a dead-end road. No one came here. Certainly not in a storm that had grounded airplanes and closed highways. Maybe it is the police? Sophie whispered, her eyes wide. Maybe a tree fell on the power lines? Stay here, I commanded. My voice was low, authoritative. The sister mode engaged. I moved toward the foyer, grabbing the heavy brass umbrella stand on my way. It was a ridiculous weapon, but it was heavy. I approached the door, the cold radiating off the wood like a block of ice. I peered through the peephole, but it was frosted over, completely white. The knocking came again, impatient, demanding. Bam, bam, bam. I unlocked the deadbolt, my heart hammering against my ribs. I cracked the door open, just an inch, ready to slam it shut at the first sign of danger. The wind hit me first, a violent gust of snow and ice that blinded me for a second. Through the swirling white chaos, I saw a figure standing on the porch, a woman. She was wearing a fur coat that looked like it had been dragged through a mud puddle, and she was shivering violently. Her mascara was running down her cheeks in black streaks, making her look like a raccoon caught in headlights. She pushed against the door. I stumbled back, my grip on the umbrella stand loosening. Open the damn door. Charlotte, do you want me to turn into a popsicle out here? The voice, it was raspy, high-pitched, and laced with an entitlement that sent a shiver down my spine, colder than the blizzard outside. I knew that voice. It was the voice that used to scream at Dad for not making enough money. It was the voice that had whispered lies to me when I was 10. The woman shoved past me, stumbling into the foyer, bringing a gust of snow with her. She kicked the door shut with her heel and leaned against it, panting. I stood there, paralyzed. My brain could not process the image. It was Linda, my mother. She had been gone for 3 years. 3 years of silence. No birthday cards. No Christmas calls. Just a note on the refrigerator that said she needed to find herself. And now, here she was, standing on the rug, dripping melted snow onto the hardwood floor I had just polished. She looked terrible. Her blonde hair, usually dyed to perfection, was showing inches of gray roots. Her face was gaunt, the skin tight over her cheekbones, but her eyes were the same, ice blue, calculating, cold. She did not look at me with love. She did not drop her bags and rush to hug the daughter she had not seen since she was 15. She looked at me like I was a member of the hotel staff who had been slow to answer room service. "Well?" she snapped, wiping the slush from her forehead with the back of a gloved hand. "Are you going to just stand there with your mouth open like a caught fish? Or are you going to take my coat? It is absolutely frigid out there." I had to walk from the main road because the taxi refused to drive up this godforsaken driveway. I could not speak. My throat felt like it was filled with broken glass. Behind me, I heard Liam and Sophie emerging from the living room. "Mom?" Sophie's voice was a whisper, fragile and hopeful. Linda looked up. She saw her children, her youngest daughter, who had cried herself to sleep for a year after she left, her teenage son, who had punched holes in the drywall in anger. "Oh, Sophie, look at you," Linda said. But she did not move toward them. She began unbuttoning her coat, grimacing as she struggled with a loose button. "You have gotten tall, and Liam, put that phone away. It is rude to text when your mother walks in the door." She finally peeled the wet coat off and thrust it toward me without making eye contact. "Hang this up, Charlotte, and be careful with it. It is real. Mink, or at least it was before this wretched weather ruined it." I took the coat automatically, my body reverting to old habits of obedience before my mind could catch up. The coat was heavy, smelling of stale cigarette smoke, expensive perfume, and something sour, like fear. "Why are you here?" I finally managed to ask. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "Low and dangerous," Linda scoffed, smoothing down her wrinkled silk blouse. She walked past me, heading straight for the living room like she had never left, like she had not missed 3 years of our lives. "Why am I here?" She laughed, a brittle, sharp sound. "This is my house, Charlotte. I live here, and judging by the temperature in here, you have turned the place into a morgue. Is there any coffee? Or do I have to make that myself too?" After almost dying in a snowbank, she did not wait for an answer. She marched into the living room, inspected the empty fireplace with a sneer, and then threw herself onto the sofa, Dad's favorite spot. She kicked her boots off, letting them fall onto the clean rug with a heavy thud. Liam and Sophie stood frozen, watching her. They looked at me, their eyes wide with confusion and a desperate need for guidance. They were waiting for me to fix this. They were waiting for me to tell them how to feel. But I could not. I watched her stretch her legs out, claiming the space, claiming the air, claiming the very oxygen in the room. "God, what a dump," Linda muttered, looking around at the peeling wallpaper in the corner that I had not had the money to fix. "I come back to salvage this family, and this is the welcome I get. Not even a cup of hot tea." I stood in the hallway, clutching her wet, smelling coat. My heart was not racing anymore. It had stopped. In its place, a cold, hard knot of dread began to tighten in my stomach. She was not here because she missed us. I knew that instantly. I could see it in the way her eyes darted around the room, assessing the furniture, looking for value. I could see it in the desperate tremor of her hands. The storm outside was dangerous, yes, but as I looked at the woman who had birthed me, the woman who was currently criticizing the dust on the mantelpiece while her children stood there like ghosts, I realized the real danger had just walked through the front door. I turned to the coat rack and hung up the wet fur. As I smoothed the collar, my hand brushed against the inside pocket. I felt something hard. Instinctively, I reached in. It was a crumpled piece of paper. I pulled it out, shielding it from view with my body. It was a betting slip, a horse race from a track in Nevada, dated 3 days ago, and next to it, a crinkled notice from a pawn shop. I shoved the papers back into the pocket and turned around to face the living room. My face was a mask of calm, but inside, I was screaming. "Make some coffee, Charlotte," Linda called out, not looking back at me, "and bring me a towel. My hair is a disaster." I looked at Liam and Sophie. I gave them a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Survive. That was the message. Just survive. I am on it. Mother, I said. The word tasted like poison. The sound of the suitcase wheels rolling across the hardwood floor upstairs sounded like thunder directly above my head. It was a heavy, grinding noise that vibrated through the ceiling beams and settled into the pit of my stomach. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, my hand gripping the banister so hard my knuckles had turned white. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run up there, to physically block the door, to bar her entry, but I did not move. I was paralyzed by the sheer audacity of it. Linda had not asked where she would be sleeping. She had not asked if the guest room was made up. She had simply marched up the stairs, trailing melting snow and the scent of stale tobacco, and headed straight for the master bedroom. Dad's room. I took a breath, holding it in my lungs until they burned, and then I forced my legs to move. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I reached the open doorway of the master suite, I stopped. The room had been preserved exactly as Dad had left it. His reading glasses were still on the nightstand next to a half-finished book about the Civil War. His robe was hanging on the hook behind the bathroom door. It smelled like him in here, a mixture of old paper, cedarwood, and peppermint. It was a scent that made me feel safe. A scent I had come in here to breathe in on the nights when the panic attacks about the mortgage payments became too much to bear. Now, that scent was being obliterated. Linda was standing in the center of the room, her hands on her hips. She had already thrown her suitcase onto the bed, Dad's bed, crushing the perfectly smoothed quilt. She was looking around with a critical sneer. Her upper lip curled as if she smelled something rotting. "My God, Charlotte," she said, not looking at me. "It is like a mausoleum in here. Do you come in here and worship at the altar of the dead every morning? It is morbid." I stepped into the room. "Please do not put your suitcase on the quilt," I said. My voice was tight. Dad's mother made that. Linda rolled her eyes and unzipped the bag. The zipper screamed in the quiet room. "Oh, stop being so sentimental. It is just a blanket. And frankly, it smells like old man in here. We need to open a window." She moved toward the sash. "Do not open the window," I snapped. "The heat is expensive, and it is a blizzard out there." She paused, her hand on the latch, and turned to look at me. Her eyes narrowed. You have become such a little pinch penny, have you not? Just like him. Your father never knew how to enjoy life. He just knew how to hoard. Hoard money. Hoard feelings. Hoard dust. She turned away from the window and began pulling clothes out of her bag. They were a chaotic mess of bright colors. Sequin tops, leopard print leggings, things that looked appropriate for a nightclub in Las Vegas, but ridiculous in a Minnesota winter. She threw them onto the floor, onto the dresser, covering Dad's things, without a second thought. You can sleep in the guest room. I said, it is down the hall. The bed is fresh. Linda laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. The guest room? That cramped little box? I do not think so. I am the matriarch of this family. Charlotte, I sleep in the master bedroom. That is how it works. Besides, my back is killing me. I need the firm mattress. She picked up a framed photograph from the dresser. It was a picture of Dad and me on a fishing trip when I was 12. We were both smiling, holding up a trout. Linda looked at it for a second, then placed it face down on the wood. Go make yourself useful, she said, waving a hand at me as if shooing away a fly. I am starving. Make something decent. Not soup. I am sick of soup. I want a steak or a roast. Something with sustenance. I stared at the face-down photograph. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag her out of the room by her dyed hair. But then I heard footsteps behind me. Liam and Sophie were standing in the hallway, peering in. Their eyes were wide, darting from me to our mother. Mom? Sophie asked tentatively. Linda's face transformed instantly. The sneer vanished, replaced by a bright, sugary smile that did not reach her eyes. Sophie, come here. Baby girl, come see what Mommy brought you. Sophie hesitated, looking at me. I gave a small, defeated nod. I could not fight this war right now, not in front of them. Sophie walked into the room, and Liam followed, slouching against the door frame, but watching intently. Linda dug into the side pocket of her suitcase and pulled out a small, velvet box. She handed it to Sophie with a flourish. I found this in a little boutique in Reno. She lied smoothly. I saw it and thought of you immediately. Sophie opened the box. Inside was a necklace with a silver heart pendant. It was flashy, encrusted with stones that were definitely not diamonds. I could see the cheapness of it from across the room. The metal was too shiny, likely nickel that would turn Sophie's skin green within a week. Oh, Mom, Sophie breathed, her eyes lighting up. It is beautiful. Linda beamed, stroking Sophie's hair. Of course it is. Only the best for my princess. I missed you so much. Honey, every single day, I felt bile rise in my throat. If she missed them every day, why did she not call? Why did she not write? But Sophie was 14 and starved for a mother's love. She did not see the price tag. She only saw the gesture. And for you, my handsome man, Linda said. Turning to Liam, she pulled out a sleek-looking box containing a set of wireless headphones. Liam's eyes widened. He straightened up, his slouch vanishing. Whoa, he said, taking the box. These are the new ones. These are expensive. Linda winked. Nothing is too expensive for my son. I know how much you love your music. I want you to have nice things. Liam, not like the junk your father used to buy. Liam looked at me. There was a challenge in his eyes now. For the past year, I had denied him expensive gadgets. I had told him we could not afford the new console. the designer sneakers, the brand name headphones. And here was Mom, breezing in after 3 years, handing him exactly what he wanted. "Thank you, Mom," Liam said, clutching the box to his chest. I stood there, the villain in the corner. I knew those headphones were likely bought with money she did not have. Or worse, money she had stolen or borrowed from dangerous people. But I could not say that. I could not ruin this moment for them without looking like a monster. "I am going to start dinner," I said quietly. No one answered me. They were too busy admiring the shiny trash their mother had brought home. I went down to the kitchen. My hands were shaking as I opened the refrigerator. There was no steak. There was no roast. There was a package of ground turkey and a bag of frozen vegetables. I started cooking. The movements, mechanical. Chop the onions. Saute the garlic. Brown the meat. The routine usually calmed me. But tonight, the silence of the kitchen felt oppressive. The wind outside was howling, slamming against the windows, burying us deeper and deeper. I walked over to the back door and looked out. The snow was halfway up the glass. We were completely trapped. Even if I wanted to throw her out, I physically could not. The roads would be impassable for emergency vehicles, let alone a woman in high-heeled boots. I was stuck with her. We were all stuck with her. An hour later, I called them down for dinner. I had made a turkey shepherd's pie. It was warm, filling, and cost less than $10 to make. Linda swept into the kitchen, wearing one of Dad's silk robes over her clothes. She sat at the head of the table, Dad's chair. Liam and Sophie sat on either side of her, still clutching their gifts. Linda looked down at the plate I placed in front of her. She poked the mashed potatoes with her fork, lifting a clump and letting it drop back down with a wet splat. "What is this?" she asked, wrinkling her nose. "Shepherd's pie," I said, sitting opposite her. She said, a long, dramatic exhalation of breath. "Ground turkey again? Really? Charlotte? You know I hate turkey. It tastes like wet cardboard." "It is what we have," I said, picking up my fork. Linda looked around the kitchen. The counters were clean, but there was a pile of mail on the side table that I had not had time to sort. "You know," she said, looking at Liam, "when I lived here, we ate pot roast on Sundays. We had prime rib. We did not eat so yu ting ha ling. Tuhash is greater than peasant food. We are on a budget," I said, my teeth clenched. "A budget?" Linda mocked. "Or maybe you are just hoarding the money. Your father was wealthy. Charlotte, he had investments. He had the life insurance. There should be plenty of money to hire a cook, or at least a maid. Look at this floor. It is filthy." I looked at the floor. It was spotless. I had mopped it yesterday. "We do not need a maid," I said. "I do the cleaning." Linda laughed again, looking at Sophie. "See? She wants to be a martyr. She wants you all to suffer so she can feel important. If I were in charge of the finances, we would have a housekeeper. We would have good food. We would be living like human beings, not refugees." Liam looked down at his food, pushing the potatoes around. "Mom is right. Char," he mumbled. "We have the insurance money. Why do we have to live like we are poor?" My heart stopped. I looked at Liam. He was 16, old enough to understand math, but young enough to believe in magic. "It is complicated." "Liam," I said. "It is not complicated," Linda shouted, slamming her hand on the table. The silverware clattered. "It is greed. Your sister is controlling you. She wants to keep the money for herself. She probably has a secret account somewhere while you two starve on turkey mush. That is not true, I shouted back. Standing up, I barely have enough to pay the electric bill. Linda just smiled. It was a cold, satisfied smile. She had planted the seed. She picked up her fork and took a bite of the food she had just insulted. Well, since this is all there is, I suppose I have to eat it. I need my strength. I have a lot of work to do to fix this family. I sat back down, defeated. The food tasted like ash in my mouth. Outside, the storm raged on, burying the house in white silence. But inside, the real storm had already breached the walls. Linda was not just taking up space. She was rewriting reality, and my brother and sister were listening. As I cleared the table later that night, Linda sat in the living room, recounting stories of her travels to Liam and Sophie. She talked about beaches in Mexico and casinos in Vegas, omitting the parts about running from debt collectors. She painted a picture of a glamorous, exciting life that she had been forced to leave, and now graciously returned from. I washed the dishes by hand, scrubbing the plates until they squeaked. I looked at my reflection in the dark window above the sink. I looked tired. I looked old. I dried my hands and walked into the living room. I am going to bed, I announced. Linda did not even turn her head. Good night, dear. Do not forget to turn the thermostat down. We do not want to waste money, right? Liam and Sophie laughed. They actually laughed. I walked up the stairs, past the closed door of the master bedroom where my mother would be sleeping in my father's bed. I went into my small room at the end of the hall and locked the door. I slid down against the wood, pulling my knees to my chest. I was the enemy now. In the span of 6 hours, she had turned me from the protector into the jailer. And the terrifying part was, she was just getting started. The morning light was gray and unforgiving, filtering through the frosted windows like dirty water. I had been awake since 4 o'clock, listening to the wind batter the siding of the house. The storm had not let up. If anything, it had intensified. We were buried. The snow was piled halfway up the first floor windows, creating a claustrophobic twilight inside the house. I was in the kitchen, brewing a fresh pot of coffee. The smell usually comforted me, but today it was mixed with the lingering scent of Linda's perfume, which seemed to have seeped into the very drywall overnight. Linda walked in at 9 o'clock. She was wearing my father's silk robe again, trailing the belt behind her like a royal train. She looked rested, her skin plump and pink, a stark contrast to the dark circles under my own eyes. Good morning, sunshine, she said, her voice gratingly cheerful. Is the coffee ready? And tell me you have something better than turkey for breakfast. Maybe some bacon? We do not have bacon, I said, pouring her a mug. We have oatmeal or toast. Linda Sihil, taking the mug. Oatmeal. Wonderful. I feel like I am living in a Dickens novel. Please. Ah, sir. I want some more. She laughed at her own joke and leaned against the counter, sipping the coffee. Where are the children? Sleeping the day away? Sophie is awake, I said, keeping my eyes on the toaster. She is not feeling well. As if on qui, Sophie walked into the kitchen. She looked ghostly pale. Her skin was the color of skim milk, and she was hunched over, her arms wrapped tightly around her stomach. She was wearing oversized sweatpants and a thick hoodie, but she was shivering. Mom, Charlotte, she whispered, my stomach really hurts. Like, really bad. I immediately abandoned the toast and went to her. placing the back of my hand against her forehead. It was clammy. I knew exactly what was wrong. Sophie had always had difficult cycles, but the stress of the storm and Linda's sudden arrival seemed to have triggered something worse. "Did you take the ibuprofen I left on your nightstand?" I asked softly. Sophie nodded, wincing as a cramp seized her. "Yeah, but it is not working. It feels like knives." Linda scoffed from across the room. She took another sip of coffee, looking at Sophie with an expression of mild annoyance. "Oh, stop being dramatic, Sophie," Linda said. "It is probably just indigestion from that awful shepherd's pie your sister forced us to eat last night." "It is not indigestion," I said, my voice low. "She is in pain." "Pain?" Linda rolled her eyes. "You kids today are so soft. You have a little tummy ache and you act like you are dying. When I was your age, I worked a double shift at the diner with the flu. Mom, it really hurts." Sophie whimpered, tears welling up in her eyes. Linda set her mug down on the counter with a sharp clatter. "Do you know what the best cure for a stomachache is? Fresh air and exercise. You are pale because you have been cooped up in this stuffy house with your sister's depressing energy." She walked over to the window and peered out at the wall of white. "The front walkway is completely buried," Linda observed. "If the emergency services need to get in here, or if the pizza delivery boy is brave enough, they will never make it to the door. Sophie, get your coat on. You are going to shovel the walk." I dropped the butter knife I was holding. It hit the floor with a metallic ring. "Are you insane?" I snapped, stepping between Linda and Sophie. "She is sick, and it is 10 degrees below zero out there." Linda's eyes narrowed into slits. "Excuse me? Did you just call your mother insane? She is not going out there." I stated firmly, "Liam can do it later, or I will do it." Linda stepped closer to me, invading my personal space. She smelled of coffee and aggression. "You will not undermine me in front of my children. Charlotte, Liam is sleeping. You are busy cooking my breakfast. Sophie needs to learn some responsibility. A little snow never hurt anyone. It builds character. Besides, she is clearly faking it to get out of chores. Look at her. She is fine." She turned to Sophie, her face softening into that manipulative, sugary mask. "Sophie, honey, do this for Mommy. My back is in agony from the travel, and your sister is too busy being a martyr to help. I just want the path clear so we are safe. You are a big girl, are you not?" Sophie looked at me, then at Linda. The desire to please the mother she had missed for 3 years warred with the pain on her face. Sao Yu Tsing Haling, 2 hashes greater than I can try." "Mom," Sophie whispered. "Sophie." "No," I pleaded. "It is okay." "Charlotte," Sophie said, her voice trembling. "Maybe the fresh air will help." Before I could stop her, Sophie turned and walked out of the kitchen toward the mudroom. Linda smiled at me, a triumphant, reptilian smile. "See," Linda said, "she is a good girl, unlike some people." I stood there, my hands shaking with rage. I wanted to throw the pot of coffee at the wall, but I did not. Instead, I turned back to the oatmeal, stirring it violently. I will keep an eye on her. I told myself, 5 minutes. I will let her do it for 5 minutes to satisfy the witch, and then I will bring her in. I went to the living room window. Through the swirling snow, I could see Sophie's small figure bundled in a neon pink parka. She was struggling with the heavy shovel. The wind was whipping her hair around her face. She looked like a doll being tossed around by a giant. She managed to clear a small patch near the stairs, lifting a heavy load of snow. I saw her pause, She dropped the shovel. She bent over, clutching her stomach. My heart hammered against my ribs. I watched as she tried to straighten up. She took one step, then another, and then her knees simply folded. She collapsed face first into the snowbank she had just created. "Sophie," I screamed. I did not think. I did not grab a coat. I did not put on boots. I bolted for the front door, wearing only my jeans and a thin sweater. "What is all the yelling about?" Linda called from the kitchen. I threw the front door open. The cold hit me like a physical blow. 1,000 needles piercing my skin instantly. The wind screamed in my ears. I ran out into the drifts, the snow soaking through my socks, freezing my feet within seconds. Sophie lay motionless. The white snow around her legs was turning a bright, shocking crimson. It was blood. So much blood. It was soaking through her gray sweatpants, staining the pristine winter world with the color of violence. "Sophie," I fell to my knees beside her, grabbing her shoulders. I turned her over. Her face was blue-white. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She was unconscious. "Oh my God," I sobbed. "Sophie, wake up." I scooped her up into my arms. She was light, terrifyingly light, but her dead weight made it hard to stand in the deep snow. I gritted my teeth, adrenaline flooding my system, giving me the strength of 10 women. I carried her back toward the house, leaving a trail of red drops behind us. Linda was standing in the open doorway, holding her coffee mug. She was staring at us, her mouth slightly open. She did not look worried. She looked annoyed, as if we were tracking mud onto her carpet. "What happened?" Linda asked as I stumbled up the steps, gasping for air. "Did she slip?" "She is bleeding." I screamed at her, my voice raw. "Get out of the way." I kicked the door wider and carried Sophie into the hallway, laying her down on the rug. The heat of the house hit us, but Sophie was ice cold. I ripped her parka open to check her breathing. It was shallow and rapid. The blood was spreading on the rug. A dark, expanding pool beneath her hips. Linda stood over us, looking down with a mixture of confusion and distaste. She took a step back to avoid the stain. "Where is the blood coming from?" Linda asked, her voice devoid of panic, merely curious. "Did she cut herself with the shovel?" I looked up at my mother, my eyes burning with tears and hatred. "No," I yelled. "It is a hemorrhage." She passed out from the pain and the cold. Linda blinked. "A hemorrhage? From where?" I stared at her. I stared at this woman who claimed to be a mother. "She is on her period." "Mom," I shouted, the word echoing in the high ceilings of the foyer. "She has menorrhagia. She loses too much blood. And you sent her out to shovel snow in a blizzard." Linda's face went blank. She looked at Sophie, then back at me, her brow furrowed. Not with concern, but with genuine bafflement. "Her period?" Linda repeated slowly. "But Xiao Xinghao Ling, 2 is greater than she is a baby. She is 10 years old." The silence that followed was louder than the storm outside. I stopped compressing Sophie's legs for a second, frozen by the sheer magnitude of Linda's ignorance. "She is 14. Linda," I hissed, my voice dripping with venom. "She is 14 years old. She has been 14 for months. You missed her 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th birthdays. You missed puberty. You missed everything." Linda took a step back, looking as if I had slapped her. She looked at Sophie. The silence in Sophie's bedroom was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the space heater I had dragged in from the hallway. I sat in the wicker chair by the window, watching my sister sleep. Her face was still pale, the translucent blue veins in her eyelids visible against the paper-thin skin. I looked down at my hands. I had scrubbed them 3 times with antibacterial soap, but I could still phantom the smell of copper, the smell of her blood. It had taken me an hour to clean the rug downstairs, scrubbing until my shoulders burned, trying to erase the physical evidence of my mother's negligence. But the emotional stain was indelible. Linda had not helped. She had stood in the doorway, sipping her coffee, offering helpful commentary about how Sophie needed to eat more red meat before retreating to the living room to watch daytime television. I checked my watch. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The storm outside had shifted from a howl to a low, menacing moan. We were buried under 4 feet of snow now. The power lines were coated in ice, sagging dangerously. If the electricity went out, the electric heaters would die, and we would be at the mercy of the fireplace and the dwindling woodpile. I stood up, my joints popping. I needed to check on the wood situation. I needed to check the pantry again. I needed to check everything because if I stopped moving, I would start screaming. I opened Sophie's door quietly and stepped into the hallway. The house felt different. Before yesterday, it had been a lonely, echoing space, but it was our space. Now, the air felt charged, thick with an unseen static. I walked toward the stairs, but I stopped when I heard voices drifting up from the living room. They were low, intimate, a murmur of conspiracy. It was Linda and Liam. I crept closer to the banister, crouching down so I would not be seen. I knew eavesdropping was beneath me, but we were in a war zone now, and intelligence was survival. You have to understand, Liam, Linda was saying, her voice smooth like warm honey. Your father was a complicated man, but he was successful. He worked himself into an early grave for this family. He wanted you kids to be set for life. He told me once, right before I Sao Yu Ting Howling, 2 hashes greater than before. I had to go away for my health. Sao Yu Ting Howling, 2 hashes greater than he told me he wanted you to have a truck when you turned 16. A Ford F-150, brand new. I gripped the banister. Dad had never said that. Dad drove a 10-year-old sedan and clipped coupons for oil changes. Liam's voice was quiet. In 7th. Really? He never mentioned a truck to me. He just said I had to keep my grades up if I wanted to use the sedan. Linda Seahill. A sound full of tragic regret. Of course he did not tell you. He was controlled by fear. And now, Charlotte is doing the exact same thing. She is terrified of the world. Liam. She thinks if she hoards every penny, she can control fate. But it is not her money to hoard. It is yours. It is your birthright. I felt a hot flush of indignation crawl up my neck. I was not hoarding. I was drowning. I was using the life insurance money to pay off the second mortgage Linda had secretly taken out 5 years ago by forging Dad's signature. I was paying off the credit cards she had maxed out in Dad's name, but Liam did not know that. Dad had made me promise. Do not tell them. Charlotte, let them love her. Let them remember me as the man who provided, not the man who spent his life cleaning up her messes. So, you think there is money left? Liam asked. Linda chuckled darkly. Honey, there is a fortune. Life insurance policies for men like your father are in the 6 figures. High 6 figures. Plus the retirement accounts. Charlotte is sitting on a gold mine, and she has you eating turkey mush and begging for pocket change. She treats you like a child, Liam, but I see a man. I see the man of the house I could not listen to anymore. The poison was seeping in too deep. I stood up and walked down the stairs, making sure my footsteps were loud, heavy, authoritative. The conversation in the living room stopped instantly. When I rounded the corner, the scene made my stomach turn. Linda was sitting on the sofa, her legs tucked under her, a glass of red wine in her hand. She had opened one of the bottles Dad had been saving for a special occasion. Liam was sitting on the floor near her feet, looking up at her with an expression I had not seen in years. Admiration. He looked at me as I entered, and the admiration vanished, replaced by a cold, hard suspicion. "How is Sophie?" Liam asked, his voice flat. "She is sleeping," I said, my eyes fixed on the wine glass in Linda's hand. "That is Dad's wine." Linda took a slow sip, holding my gaze. Now it is just wine. Alcohol goes bad if you do not drink it. "Charlotte, I am saving it from turning into vinegar, much like I am trying to save this family." I ignored her bait. "Liam, I need you to go check the woodpile on the back porch. Bring in as much as you can carry. The temperature is dropping tonight." Liam did not move. He stayed seated on the floor, picking at a loose thread on the rug. "Why do I have to do it?" he asked. "Because I asked you to," I said, trying to keep the exhaustion out of my voice. "And because we need heat? Why do not we just turn up the thermostat?" Liam challenged, standing up slowly. He was taller than me now. I often forgot that. He towered over me, lanky but broad-shouldered. "Mom says we have the money. Mom says the insurance check was huge." I shot a glare at Linda. She smiled innocently into her wine glass, swirling the red liquid. "We have a budget." "Liam," I said, my voice tightening. "We have discussed this." "We have not discussed anything," Liam shouted, his voice cracking. "You decided everything. You decided we are poor. You decided I cannot get new shoes. You decided Sophie has to shovel snow. Mom says you are hiding the money. Is that true?" I felt like the walls were closing in. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and toxic. "Your mother does not know what she is talking about," I said coldly. "She has been gone for 3 years. She does not know our finances." "Then show me," Liam demanded. He took a step toward me. "Show me the bank statements. Show me the insurance payout. If we are so broke, prove it." I froze. I could not show him. If I showed him the statements, he would see the transfers to the debt collection agencies. He would see the payments to the casinos in Nevada that Dad had tried to cover up. He would see that his mother was a thief. "I cannot do that," I said quietly. "Why not?" Liam yelled. "Because you are 16. I snapped, my control finally fraying. "Because I am the legal guardian. Because I am the one who stayed." That was the wrong thing to say. I saw it in his eyes immediately. I had played the authority card, confirming everything Linda had just whispered in his ear. I was the dictator. I was the gatekeeper. Liam looked at me with pure disgust. "You are a liar. Charlotte, Mom is right. You just want to control everything. You want to be the hero." He turned and stormed out of the room, shouldering past me. I heard his heavy footsteps pounding up the stairs, followed by the slam of his bedroom door. The house shook. I stood there, shaking. I felt stripped naked, exposed. I had lost him in 10 minutes. She had undone a year of my hard work. Linda took another sip of wine. She set the glass down on the coaster with a delicate clink. "You really should work on your people skills, Charlotte," she said softly. "You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar." I turned to her slowly. The rage inside me was cold now, solidified into something sharp and deadly. You are poisoning him, I whispered. You are lying to him. You know there is no money. You spent it all. You bled Dad dry before you left. And now you are back to pick the bones. Linda's expression did not change. She looked bored. I am giving him hope. Charlotte, that is what a mother does. I am telling him that he deserves better than this miserable existence you have created. You are so focused on the numbers, on the debts, on the past. You have forgotten that they are children. They need to believe the world is full of possibility, not Saoyi Ting Haoling. 2# is greater than this. She gestured around the room, encompassing the frugal furniture, the cold fireplace, and me. I am protecting them from the truth. I said, I am protecting them from you. Linda laughed. It was a low, throaty sound. Oh, sweetheart, you cannot protect anyone. Look at you. You are trembling. You are a little girl playing house, wearing your daddy's big shoes, and tripping over the laces. She stood up and walked over to me. She was close enough that I could smell the wine on her breath. You are tired. Charlotte, she cooed, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. I flinched away, but she was faster. Her hand lingered on my cheek, cold and damp. Why do not you just give it up? She whispered. Give me the checkbook. Give me the passwords. Let mommy take care of the burden. You can go back to being a teenager. You can go to college. You can find a boyfriend. Just let go. For a second. Just a split second. The temptation washed over me like a warm wave. To let go. To stop counting. To stop worrying. To let someone else be the adult. But then I looked into her eyes. They were empty. There was no love there. Only a bottomless hunger. If I gave her the keys, she would drive this family off a cliff within a week. She would spend every last cent, sell the house, and leave us on the street before vanishing again. Get away from me, I said. Stepping back, Linda shrugged, dropping her hand. Have it your way. But remember, Charlotte, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And you are standing all alone. She turned and walked toward the kitchen. I am going to make myself a sandwich. Try not to freeze to death while you are brooding. I stood alone in the darkening living room. The wind battered the windows. A relentless assault. I looked up at the ceiling, toward the rooms where my siblings were. Sophie was hurt because of my negligence. Liam hated me because of my secrets. I walked over to the desk in the corner. Dad's old desk. I unlocked the bottom drawer with the key I kept on a chain around my neck. I pulled out the ledger I kept hidden there. I opened it to the last page. The numbers were red, angry red ink. Property tax, overdue. Heating oil, low. Emergency fund, $412. I traced the numbers with my finger. This was the truth. This was the reality. Linda was selling them a fantasy of abundance, and I was the one holding the bill. I closed the book and locked it away. I was losing. I could feel it. The control I cherished. The order I had fought so hard to maintain was crumbling like dry sand. Linda did not need to physically hurt me to win. She just needed to make me the villain in my own story. And she was succeeding. I walked to the window and pressed my hand against the freezing glass. My reflection stared back at me. A pale, frightened girl with dark circles under her eyes. I need to get her out. I thought, I need to get her out before she destroys what is left of us. But as I looked at the white wall of snow outside, I knew there was no way out. Not for her, and not for me. We were trapped in this cage together. and only one of us was holding the whip. I turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. Upstairs, music started blasting from Liam's room. Heavy, angry bass thumping through the floorboards. He was using the new headphones. The sound felt like a heartbeat, a fast, irregular, dying heartbeat. The spiral had begun. The sound of splintering wood is distinct. It is a violent, dry crack that signals something being forced open against its will. I heard it from the upstairs hallway. A sharp report that cut through the low hum of the wind. I was carrying a tray of toast and tea for Sophie. I froze the china rattling softly on the tray. The sound had come from the end of the hall, from Dad's office. I set the tray down on the floor, abandoning it, and ran. The door to the office was wide open. Inside, it looked like a tornado had touched down. Papers were strewn everywhere, covering the floor in a white carpet of documents. Drawers were pulled out and dumped upside down. Books were pulled from the shelves, and there, in the center of the chaos, was Linda. She was kneeling on the rug, surrounded by the debris of my father's life. In her hands, she held a small, black metal box, the lock on Dad's heavy oak desk drawer. The one drawer I had never been able to open, the one Dad always kept the key to on his person, was shattered. She had pried it open with a letter opener. Snapping the wood, Linda looked up as I burst into the room. Her eyes were wild, glittering with a manic energy. She did not look guilty. She looked triumphant. I knew it. She shrieked, scrambling to her feet. I knew you were lying to me, you little snake. She held up a thin blue bank book. My heart stopped. It felt like the blood in my veins turned to ice. Put that down, I said, my voice trembling. That does not belong to you. It belongs to us, Linda screamed, waving the book in the air. Look at this. Look at the balance. $75,000. She opened the book and shoved it toward my face. The numbers were printed neatly in black ink. Ending balance, $75,420. You told me we were broke. You told me we could not afford bacon. And you are sitting on 75 grand? I stepped forward, reaching for the book. Give it to me. Linda, you do not understand what that money is for. I understand perfectly. She spat, dodging my hand. You are stealing from us. You are stealing from your brother and sister. You are hoarding this while I am humiliated, begging you for scraps. I am not stealing, I yelled back. That is the debt fund. The debt fund? Linda laughed, a harsh, barking sound. What kind of idiotic lie is that? Before I could answer, I heard footsteps behind me. Liam and Sophie were there. Sophie was wrapped in a blanket, looking pale and frightened. Liam looked furious. What is going on? Liam asked, looking from the wrecked office to the bank book in Linda's hand. Your sister, Linda announced, her voice dripping with venomous satisfaction, has been hiding $75,000 from us. While we froze, while we ate garbage, while I had to humiliate myself asking for bus fare, Liam turned to me. His face was a mask of betrayal. Is that true? Charlotte, I looked at him. I looked at Sophie. I felt the trap snap shut around my neck. It is true that the money exists, I said, my voice steady but quiet. But it is not for us. It is not for spending. Then what is it for? Liam demanded. Stepping into the room, I looked at Linda. She was watching me with a dare in her eyes. Go ahead, her eyes said. Tell them their mother is a degenerate gambler who owes money to loan sharks. Destroy their image of me. Break their heart. I could not do it. I could not look at my 14-year-old sister, who was already traumatized, and tell her that her mother was a criminal. I could not tell Liam, who was so desperate for a parent, that the only reason Mom came back was because she had run out of people to con. I clenched my fists. It is for Sao Yu Hao Ling. 2# is greater than emergencies. It is a safety net. Dad wanted us to have it in case. Sao Yu Hao Ling. 2# is greater than in case something happened. Liar, Linda screamed. She slammed the bank book down on the desk. Your father never saved a dime in his life. He was reckless. He spent money on stupid things. This is my money. This is the settlement from the car accident I had 10 years ago. He stole it from me. It was a lie. A blatant, disgusting lie. But she said it with such conviction, with such passionate victimhood, that it sounded like the truth. Mom, Sao Yu Hao Lin. 2# is greater than Liam's voice wavered. Dad stole from you? Yes. Linda sobbed, suddenly bursting into tears. She collapsed into the desk chair, burying her face in her hands. He was a monster. Liam. He controlled everything. He took my settlement money and hid it in this account under Charlotte's name so I could not touch it. He wanted to leave me with nothing. That is why I had to leave. I did not abandon you. Sao Yu Hao Ling. 2# is greater than I was escaping. I was escaping financial abuse. The room went silent. The only sound was Linda's theatrical sobbing. I stood there, stunned. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She had taken her own sins, her theft, her irresponsibility, and projected them onto the dead man who had spent his life cleaning up her messes. That is not true. I whispered. Dad loved you. He paid your debts. He controlled me. Linda wailed, looking up with tear-stained eyes. And now, you are doing it too. You are his little soldier. You are punishing me just like he did. Liam turned to me. His eyes were cold, hard stones. Give her the money. Charlotte, I looked at him, shocked. Liam, you cannot be serious. Give. Do her. The money. Liam enunciated every word. It is hers. Dad stole it. You are just helping him do it from the grave. Liam, please, I beg. Taking a step toward him. You have to trust me. If we spend this money, we lose the house. We lose everything. We are already losing everything. Liam shouted. We are miserable. Mom is back, and she wants to fix things. And you are standing in the way. You are the problem. Charlotte, not her. You. Sophie started to cry softly in the doorway. Stop it. Please stop fighting. Linda stood up then. She wiped her eyes, her face suddenly composed, her voice steely. We are going to have a family meeting downstairs. Now, we are going to settle this. She marched out of the room, clutching the bank book like a weapon. Liam followed her without looking back at me. Sophie lingered for a second, looking at me with wide, teary eyes, then turned and followed them. I was left alone in the wreckage of my father's office. The wind howled outside, rattling the window pane. I walked over to the desk. I looked at the broken drawer. Inside, hidden beneath the false bottom where the bank book had been, was a stack of letters. They were from a collection agency in Nevada. They were addressed to Linda. The total amount owed was exactly $75,000. Dad had saved that money to pay them off, to keep them from coming after the house, to keep them from coming after us. I picked up the letters. My hand shook. If I showed them these letters, I would win the argument. but I would kill their souls. I would destroy the only parent they had left. I put the letters in my pocket. I went downstairs. They were sitting at the dining room table. Linda was at the head. Liam and Sophie were on the sides. It looked like a tribunal. Sit down. Charlotte, Linda said. I sat. Here is the situation. Linda began, her voice calm and authoritative. Charlotte has been hiding a significant amount of money. Money that belongs to this family. Money that can give us a fresh start. I propose we use this money to clear the immediate debts, fix up the house, and maybe Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling 2 is greater than maybe take a trip, a family trip, to reconnect. Liam's eyes lit up. A trip? Like to Disney World? Linda smiled at him. Or Hawaii. Or Europe. Whatever you want. Sweetie, we deserve it. After everything we have been through. I stared at her. She was insane. She was going to blow the entire lifeline on a vacation. We cannot go on vacation. I said, my voice dull. We have to pay the mortgage. We have to pay the property tax. Boring. Linda slammed her hand on the table. You are so boring. Charlotte, you are 18 going on 80. Live a little. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. Transfer the money. Charlotte, sign the check. Or Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling, R. Jing Hao Da Yu. Or what? I challenged. Or I will petition the court for full custody. Linda said softly, I will tell them you are mentally unstable. I will tell them you are unfit. I will tell them you have been neglecting your siblings. Look at Sophie. She is sick and you did nothing. I will take them away from you, and you will never see them again. The room went dead silent. Liam and Sophie looked at her, then at me. They did not look scared of her threat. They looked, Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling, 2 is greater than hopeful. They thought she could actually take care of them. I looked at Liam. He was nodding slightly. I looked at Sophie. She was clutching the cheap necklace Linda had given her. I realized then that I had already lost. I had lost the battle for their hearts. If I fought her now, she would drag us through a court battle I could not afford. And she would win because she was the mother and I was just the sister. And in the process, the secrets would come out anyway. I felt something break inside me. It was a small, quiet snap. The tether that held me to my role as the protector, the martyr, the good girl. It snapped. Fine, I said. Linda blinked. What? Fine. I repeated. I stood up. You want the money? You want to be in charge? You want to be the mother? I reached into my pocket. I did not pull out the letters. I pulled out the key to the safe deposit box where the physical checkbook for that account was kept. I threw the key onto the table. It slid across the wood and hit Linda's wine glass with a sharp clink. Take it, I said. It is all yours. Linda grabbed the key, her eyes hungry. She did not question it. She did not ask why I gave up so easily. Greed is blinding. Good girl, she purred. Finally, you are seeing reason. She turned to Liam and Sophie, beaming. See, I told you. Mommy fixes everything. Liam grinned at her. Sophie smiled weakly. They looked like a happy family, and I was the outsider. I walked away from the table. I walked out of the dining room, into the hallway, and grabbed my coat. Where are you going? Liam called out. To check the generator. I lead. I walked out onto the back porch. The cold air hit me, cleansing and sharp. I closed the door behind me, muffling the sounds of their celebration inside. I stood in the dark, shivering. I had given her the key, but I had not given her the password to transfer the funds online. And I had not told her that the bank required 2 signatures for any withdrawal over $10,000. Dad's and mine. Since Dad was dead, it required a death certificate and a probate court order, which would take months. But she did not know that. She thought she had won. She would try to access the money. She would fail. And when she failed, she would get desperate. And when she got desperate, she would make a mistake. A real mistake. Not just being mean, but something criminal. Something I could use. I reached into my pocket and touched the letters from the loan sharks. You want to be the villain. Mom? I thought, looking out at the snow-covered forest. Fine, I will let you be the villain, but I am going to write the ending. I was not the victim anymore. I was the hunter, and I was going to wait. The house had become a stranger to me. That is the only way I can describe the feeling that settled over me in the hours following the confrontation in the dining room. It was my house. The walls I had painted, the floors I had scrubbed, the mortgage I had agonized over. But I was now an intruder within its borders. I retreated to my bedroom, the smallest room on the second floor, and listened to the sounds of occupation from below. The laughter was the worst part. It drifted up through the vents, distorted and ghostly. I heard Liam's deep, cracking laugh. I heard the high, bright melody of Sophie's giggle. They sounded happy. They sounded relieved, for the first time in 3 years. The heavy blanket of grief and austerity had been lifted, replaced by the manic, artificial sunshine my mother had brought with her. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. My hands were still trembling, a fine, high-frequency vibration that rattled my bones. I had given her the key. I had surrendered the symbol of control, but I knew the truth. I knew that tomorrow, when the roads cleared and she tried to march into the First National Bank of Duluth to claim her settlement, she would be turned away. The account was frozen in probate, without my signature and a court order. That key was just a piece of brass. I thought I was clever. I thought I was playing the long game. I told myself that when she failed, when her lies hit the hard wall of bureaucracy, the kids would see her for what she was, a fraud. But I had underestimated the desperation of a drowning animal, and I had severely underestimated how much damage could be done in a single night. The storm began to break around midnight. The howling wind died down to a whisper, leaving behind a silence that felt heavy and expectant. The moon broke through the clouds, casting long, blue shadows across the snowdrifts that reached halfway up the bedroom windows. I was not sleeping. I was lying awake, counting the cracks in the ceiling plaster. When my door handle turned, I sat up, my heart lurching into my throat. I had locked the door. I was sure of it. But then I remembered. The lock on my door had been broken since I was 12. A trick you could open with a fingernail if you knew how, and Linda knew how. She slipped into the room like a shadow. She did not turn on the light. The moonlight from the window illuminated her silhouette. She was still wearing the silk robe, but the playful, maternal mask she had worn downstairs was gone. Her face was slack, her eyes dark holes in the pale light. She closed the door softly behind her and leaned against it. You think you are so smart, do not you? She whispered. I pulled the duvet up to my chest. A childish shield against a very adult threat. I do not know what you are talking about, I said, my voice thick with sleep and fear. Linda walked further into the room. She moved with a predator's grace, silent and efficient. She pulled the desk chair over to the side of my bed and sat down, crossing her legs. She was close enough that I could smell the wine on her breath, sour, and sharp. The key. Charlotte, she said, her voice flat. I looked at the paperwork in the box. I saw the probate stamp. I know I cannot access that money without you. You gave me the key to make me look like a fool. You wanted me to walk into that bank and get humiliated so you could swoop in and say, I told you so. I stared at her. I did not deny it. There was no point. You cannot have that money. Linda, I said, finding my courage in the darkness. It is not yours. It is for the debts. It is to keep this roof over our heads. Linda Sehil. A long, weary sound that almost sounded human. She rubbed her temples. I do not care about the roof. Charlotte, I do not care about the debts. I need money. Real money. Liquid cash. And I need it now. Why? I asked. Why did you really come back? She looked at me, and for a second, the moonlight caught her eyes. They were terrified. I owe people, she admitted. Bad people. People who do not send letters. Charlotte, they send men with baseball bats. I ran out of time. I came here because I thought your father left me something. Anything. I thought I could grab a quick 50,000 and disappear again before they found me. The truth hit me like a physical blow. It was not love. It was not even greed for luxury. It was survival. She had brought her chaos, her danger, to our doorstep. You put us in danger, I whispered, horror rising in my throat. If they are looking for you, so Yuting howling. 2 hashes greater than are they looking here? Linda waved a hand dismissively. They do not know I am here yet. I have a few days, but I need the money. I need $50,000. Charlotte, I laughed. It was a hysterical, dry sound. We do not have $50,000. You know that. The account is frozen. We have nothing. Linda leaned forward. Her face was inches from mine. You have something, she hissed. I saw the other bank book, the one in the blue folder at the bottom of the drawer, the one that says, Charlotte Evans, College Fund. I stopped breathing. That money was my life. It was the payout from a small trust my grandmother had left me, combined with every penny I had earned working summers since I was 14. It was exactly $52,000. It was my tuition for the University of Chicago. It was my escape plan. It was the only thing that kept me going. The knowledge that one day, when Liam was 18, I could leave. I could be Charlotte the student, not Charlotte the guardian. No, I said. My voice was barely a whisper. You cannot touch that. That is my future. Your future? Linda sneered. What about your present? What about your brother and sister? What do you mean? If you do not give me that money, Linda said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm, I am going to stay. I am going to stay in this house. I am going to drag this family down with me. When the men come looking for me, they will find Liam and Sophie too. And even if they do not, Sao Yiting Haoling, 2 hashes greater, then I will make your life a living hell. I will poison them against you every single day. I will tell them you stole their inheritance. I will tie you up in custody battles until you are 30 years old and broke. I will never let you leave. Charlotte, never. I stared at her. She meant it. She was holding my siblings hostage. Not with a gun, but with her presence. She was offering me a choice. My money or my family, my future or their safety. If I give you the money, I said, my voice shaking, will you go? Linda nodded. Her eyes gleamed. Yes, I will leave tomorrow morning. As soon as the plow comes, I will take a taxi to the airport, and you will never see me again. I will sign whatever paper you want. Full custody, termination of parental rights. Everything. You buy me out? Charlotte, you buy your freedom. I looked at the window. The snow had stopped. The world outside was still and white and clean. I thought about Liam, how he looked at me with hate in his eyes today. I thought about Sophie, bleeding in the snow because her mother did not know she was a woman. If Linda stayed, she would destroy them. She would twist Liam into a bitter, entitled man. She would break Sophie's spirit. I had to get her out, whatever the cost. I pushed the covers off and stood up. My legs felt weak. Okay, I said. Linda smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had seen on her face. It was the smile of a shark that had just smelled blood. Good choice. I walked over to my desk. My hands were numb as I opened the drawer and pulled out my checkbook. The blue checkbook with the university logo on the cover. The one I had bought to motivate myself. I opened it. I uncapped a pen. I wrote the date, November 25th. I wrote the name, Linda Evans. I moved to the amount line. My hand hovered. $50,000. It was everything. It was 4 years of dorm rooms and libraries and coffee shops and freedom. It was my identity. I squeezed my eyes shut. I saw Sophie's face. I saw Liam's face. I am doing this for you. I thought, one day, you will understand. I wrote the words, 50,000 and 0/100th dollars. I signed my name. The signature was shaky, barely legible. I ripped the check out of the book. The sound of the paper tearing was the loudest thing in the world. It sounded like a bone snapping. I turned around and held it out. Here, I said, take it and get out. Linda stood up and snatched the check from my hand. She looked at it, inspecting the numbers, verifying the signature. She folded it neatly and tucked it into the pocket of her robe. A pleasure doing business with you, Charlotte, she said. She turned to leave. Wait, I said. You promised. You leave tomorrow, and you tell them, 小玉井好灵, 2 hash is greater than tell them you had to go for work. Tell them something kind. Do not break their hearts. Linda looked back at me over her shoulder. Her expression was unreadable. I will tell them exactly what they need to hear. She walked out of the room. I stood there, in the center of my bedroom, shivering. I felt lighter, but it was a terrible lightness. It was the lightness of having been hollowed out. I had just bought my family's safety with my dreams. I walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the glass. The cold seeped into my skin. It is over, I told myself. She is leaving. We can go back to normal. I can work. I can save again. It will take years, but we are safe. I did not know then that Linda had not walked out of the room empty-handed. I did not know that in the deep pocket of her silk robe, beneath the check that held my future, her cell phone was resting, and I did not know that the voice recorder app was running. Down the hall, in the master bedroom, Linda sat on the edge of my father's bed. She took out her phone and stopped the recording. She pressed play. She listened to her own voice, edited and manipulated in her mind already. She fast-forwarded through her threats. She skipped the part about the loan sharks. She found the exact moment she needed. My voice came through the tiny speaker, sounding desperate and clear. If I give you the money, will you go? And then, her voice, soft and sad. I do not want your money. Charlotte, I want to be with my children. And then me again. Here, take it, and get out. She smiled. She had done this before. She knew exactly how to cut the audio file. She knew exactly how to delete the context. With a few taps of her finger, she edited the clip. Now, it was a 30-second story of a cruel, wealthy daughter bribing her destitute mother to leave the house because she did not want to share the inheritance. Charlotte, if I give you the money, will you go? Charlotte, here, take it, and get out. It was perfect. It was a weapon far more powerful than the check she held in her hand. The check was money. The recording was leverage. Linda looked at the check again. $50,000. It was enough to keep the wolves at bay for a few months. But why settle for a few months when she could have the whole house? Why settle for scraps when she could have the kingdom? She was not leaving tomorrow. She was not going anywhere. She lay back on the pillows, my father's pillows, and closed her eyes. She slept the sleep of the righteous. While down the hall, I lay awake, mourning the death of the girl I was supposed to be, believing that my sacrifice had actually meant something. The tragedy was not that I lost the money. The tragedy was that I thought the game was over, when in reality, the second half had just begun. The morning sun was blinding. It reflected off the acres of pristine white snow, turning the world outside into a brilliant, painful expanse of light. The storm had passed, leaving the sky a vivid, impossible blue. I watched from the kitchen window as the county plow rumbled down our long driveway, a behemoth of yellow steel pushing the blockade aside. I felt a surge of relief, so profound it made my knees weak. The road was open. She could leave. I had packed a bag for her. It was sitting by the door, a silent, hopeful sentinel. I made coffee, my movements brisk. I was ready to drive her to the airport myself. I was ready to hand her the ticket. I was ready to start breathing again. But when Linda walked into the kitchen at 10 o'clock, she was not dressed for travel. She was wearing jeans and a cashmere sweater she had found in my closet. My favorite sweater. "Good morning," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "The taxi will be here in 20 minutes, I said, not looking up from the sink. I called them as soon as the plow came through. Linda blew on her coffee. "Oh, cancel it." I froze. I turned around slowly, the dish sponge dripping soapy water onto the floor. "What did you say?" I said, "Cancel it. I am not going anywhere today. The roads are still slippery. I hate flying in winter. Maybe next week." My vision blurred. The rage that surged through me was hot and blinding. "No," I said. My voice was low, shaking. "We had a deal. I gave you the check. You leave. Today." Linda smiled over the rim of her mug. "The deal has changed. Sweetheart, inflation. You know." She turned and walked into the living room, where Liam and Sophie were sitting. They were laughing at something on the television. They looked. "Sayu Tsinghao Ling. Ike, normal." I followed her, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "Linda," I shouted. The laughter stopped. Liam and Sophie looked up. I startled. Linda turned around slowly, a look of pure innocence on her face. "What is wrong with you? Charlotte, why are you screaming? You are leaving," I yelled, pointing at the door. "Get your bag. Get out." Liam stood up. "Hey, stop yelling at her. What is your problem?" "My problem?" I pointed a shaking finger at Linda. "She took my money. She took $50,000 from me last night. She promised she would leave if I paid her. And now she is refusing to go." Liam looked at Linda. "Mom, is that true? Did she pay you to leave?" Linda's face crumpled. Her lower lip trembled. She looked at Liam with eyes full of tears. "Oh, Liam, Sayu Tsinghao Ling. Due cancelletto e maggiore di Sayu Tsinghao Ling. 2 hashes greater than I did not want to tell you." I did not want you to know how cruel your sister really is. She reached into her pocket, but she did not pull out the check. She pulled out her phone. She came into my room last night. Linda sobbed. She threw a check at me. She told me, "So you Ting Haoling, 2# is greater than." She told me I was trash. She told me if I did not take the money and get out, she would have me arrested. Liar. I screamed. You blackmailed me. You said you would destroy the family if I did not pay you. Linda shook her head sadly. I have proof. Liam, I recorded it. I was so scared. So you Ting Haoling, 2# is greater than. I just wanted to have proof in case she tried to hurt me. She tapped the screen. The audio filled the quiet living room. Charlotte, if I give you the money, will you go? Linda, I do not want your money. Charlotte, I want to be with my children. Charlotte, here, take it, and get out. The silence that followed was deafening. It was heavier than the snow outside. I stood there, my mouth open, staring at the phone. It was me. It was my voice. But it was twisted. It was a lie constructed from the truth that is edited. I shouted, looking desperately at Liam. That is not how it happened. She cut out the parts where she threatened me. She said she owed money to loan sharks. Liam looked at me. His face was unreadable for a moment, and then it hardened into a mask of pure disgust. You tried to buy her off? He asked quietly. I tried to protect us. I cried. She is dangerous. Liam, she is a liar. Mom just wants to be here. Liam yelled, his voice cracking. She came back for us, and you are treating her like a criminal. You are the one with the secret bank account. You are the one with $50,000 to throw around while we freeze. He turned to Linda. Mom, give it back to her. Give her the money. We do not need it. We do not need anything from her. Linda reached into her pocket and pulled out the check. She looked at it sadly. I cannot. Liam, she whispered. I already deposited it via the mobile app this morning. I had to. I have. Sao Yu Ting Haoling, 2# is greater than. I have debts from when your father left me with nothing. I had to pay them to be safe. She looked at me, a tear sliding perfectly down her cheek. I am sorry, Charlotte. I had to take it, but I am not leaving. I am not leaving my babies again. You cannot buy me out of being a mother. I felt like I was being strangled. She had taken my money and she was staying. She had won everything. You are a monster, I whispered. Liam stepped in front of her, shielding her from me. Get away from her. Charlotte, just Sao Yu Ting Haoling, 2# is greater than. Get away. I looked at Sophie. She was curled up on the chair, crying silently, her hands over her ears. I backed away. I backed into the hallway. Fine, I said. My voice was dead. Fine. You want to be the hero. Liam, you want to protect her? Then you deal with the truth. I ran to the stairs. Where are you going? Linda called out, her voice suddenly sharp. I did not answer. I ran up the stairs. 2 at a time, I ran into Dad's office. I went to the closet where the old safe was bolted to the floor. I spun the dial, left to 10, right to 24, left to 65. The heavy door clicked open. I reached inside and pulled out a thick manila envelope. It was labeled Linda in Dad's handwriting. I ran back downstairs. They were still in the living room. Linda was hugging Liam. It was a tender, sickening tableau. I threw the envelope onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy slap. Read it, I said. Linda looked at the envelope. Her face went pale. Charlotte, do not, she warned. Her voice was low, dangerous. Read it, I screamed at Liam. Read about your saint of a mother. Liam let go of Linda. He looked at the envelope. What is this? It is the truth. I said, it is the reason we are poor. It is the reason Dad died of a heart attack at 50. It is the receipts. Liam, the gambling debts, the forged checks, the loans he took out to keep her out of jail. Liam reached for the envelope. Do not touch it, Linda shrieked. She lunged for the table, snatching the envelope before Liam could grab it. It is lies, Linda yelled, clutching the papers to her chest. Your father forged these. He was trying to frame me. He was crazy. Give it to him, I said, stepping closer. Let him see the dates. Let him see the signatures. Let him see the letter from the casino banning you for life. Linda backed away, her eyes darting around the room. She was trapped. No, she screamed. You ungrateful little brat. After everything I sacrificed, I gave birth to you. I gave you life. You gave us nothing but debt and trauma. I shouted back. You are a parasite. Linda, you came back here to bleed us dry because you have nowhere else to go. Linda's face twisted. The mask fell away completely. The beautiful, tragic mother was gone. In her place was something ugly and raw. Shut up, she screeched. You do not know anything. Your father was a weak, pathetic man. He owed me. He promised me a good life. And he gave me this. Saoyutinghal Lin. 2 hashes greater than this dump. He deserved to die. The room went silent. Liam stared at her. What did you say? Linda was panting. Her hair was wild. She looked at Liam, realizing she had slipped. Saoyutinghal Lin. 2 hash is greater than I did not mean that. I was just angry. He deserved to die, Liam repeated, his voice shaking. Dad, Linda scoffed, trying to recover her ground. Oh, grow up. Liam, your father was a bore. He was a suffocating, self-righteous bore. He judged me for enjoying life. He judged me for wanting nice things. And yes, I am glad he is dead. At least now I can get what is mine. She turned to the mantelpiece. There, sitting in a velvet box, was Dad's gold watch, the Patek Philippe his grandfather had given him. It was the only valuable thing left in the house. She grabbed it. I am taking this, she announced. Since you stole my settlement money, I am taking this to the pawn shop. It should cover the rest of what I need. No, Liam shouted. That is Dad's. He gave that to me. He said I could have it when I turned 18. Liam lunged for her. Linda shoved him back. He stumbled and fell onto the sofa. It is mine. Linda snarled. Everything in this house is mine. I am the wife. I am the owner. I stepped forward. I grabbed her wrist. Drop it. Linda. She looked at me. Her eyes were black with rage. Let go of me. She raised her other hand and slapped me. It was a hard, stinging blow across the face. My head snapped to the side. I tasted blood in my mouth, but I did not let go. I tightened my grip on her wrist. You hit me? I whispered. I looked at her. I saw the fear flicker in her eyes. She realized, for the first time, that I was not 18 anymore. I was not the little girl she could bully. I was taller than her. I was stronger than her. And I was done. I twisted her wrist. Hard. Linda yelped and dropped the watch. It fell onto the rug with a soft thud. Get out, I said. My voice was deadly quiet. Get out of my house. Your house? Linda laughed, though she was wincing in pain. You stupid girl. You think this is your house? She wrenched her arm free and reached into her back pocket. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. It looked old, yellowed at the edges. She threw it at me. Read it. Charlotte Read the deed. I picked up the paper. It was a copy of the property deed. Joint tenants with right of survivorship, Robert Evans and Linda Evans. She smiled. Acryl. Victorious smile. Your father never took my name off the deed. He died before the divorce was finalized. Do you know what that means? It means I own this house. 100%. She stepped closer to me, invading my space, smelling of triumph. I am not leaving. Charlotte, you are. I am selling the house. I called the realtor this morning. She is coming over in an hour to do an appraisal. I am selling it, taking the cash, and leaving you all in the snow. I stared at the paper. It could not be true. Dad would not have been that careless, but the signature was there. Liam stood up. You are selling the house? Where are we supposed to live? Linda shrugged. Not my problem. You are 16. You can get a job. Sophie can go into foster care. They have nice homes for girls like her. She looked at me. Pack your bags. Charlotte, you have an hour. The sound of a car engine cut through the silence. Tires crunching on gravel. Linda beamed. That must be the realtor. Perfect timing. She smoothed her hair, adjusted her sweater, my sweater, and walked toward the front door. I stood frozen. I looked at Liam. He was crying. Sophie was sobbing into a pillow. I had failed. I had lost the money. I had lost the house. I had lost everything. But as Linda opened the front door to welcome the realtor, I heard a voice I recognized. And it was not a realtor. Mrs. Evans? It was a deep, baritone voice. Linda stopped. Who are you? My name is Arthur Pendleton. I am the family attorney, and these officers are here to escort you off the premises. I looked up Arthur. I had called him yesterday when I went out to the porch to check the generator. I had left a voicemail. I did not think he would come. I did not think he could help, but he was here, and he was not alone. The cold air from the open doorway rushed into the foyer, swirling around my ankles and chilling the sweat that had broken out on my back. Linda stood frozen, her hand still gripping the doorknob, her face a portrait of shattered arrogance. Arthur Pendleton stood on the porch, a gray-haired giant in a camel hair coat. Behind him, two uniformed officers from the county sheriff's department stood with their hands resting on their belts, their breath plumed in the freezing air. 3 pillars of authority against the white backdrop of the snow. Linda recovered her composure with terrifying speed. She smoothed her hair and forced a tight, polite smile, though her eyes remained darting and feral. Mr. Pendleton, she said, her voice pitching up an octave into a tone of feigned delight. What a surprise. I was just expecting the realtor. We are in the middle of a family crisis. I am afraid my daughter is having a bit of a breakdown. Perhaps you could come back another time? Arthur did not smile. He did not step back. He stepped forward, forcing Linda to retreat into the hallway. The officers followed him, their heavy boots thumping ominously on the hardwood floor. I am not here for a social call. Linda, Arthur said. His voice was deep, gravelly, and devoid of warmth. And I am certainly not here to help you sell a house that does not belong to you. Linda laughed, a high, nervous titter. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the crumpled copy of the deed she had thrown at me moments ago. She waved it in Arthur's face like a flag. You must be confused. Arthur, I know it has been a while, and maybe your memory is failing, but look, joint tenants with right of survivorship. Robert is dead. The house is mine. I can sell it, burn it, or turn it into a circus if I want to. Arthur looked at the paper with disdain. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a blue folder. That deed is a relic. Linda. It was superseded 5 years ago. Linda stopped waving the paper. Her smile faltered. What are you talking about? Arthur opened the folder. He pulled out a document stamped with the official seal of the state of Minnesota. This is a quitclaim deed, signed by you on August 15th, 2019. You signed over all rights to this property to Robert Evans in exchange for a cash settlement of $40,000. Do you remember? You needed the money to pay off a rather aggressive bookie in Las Vegas. Linda's face went the color of old ash. She stared at the document. Xiao Ting Hao Ling, 2 hash, is greater than I never signed that. She whispered. That is a forgery. Robert forged it. Arthur turned the page. And this, he continued, ignoring her, is the notarized affidavit from the notary public who witnessed your signature, and the bank transfer record showing the $40,000 entering your account the very next day. You sold your share of this house. Linda, you have no legal standing here. You are trespassing. The silence in the hallway was absolute. I looked at Liam. He was standing by the stairs, his mouth slightly open. He was putting the pieces together. The dates, the money, the lies. Linda backed away, shaking her head. No, this is a trick. Charlotte put you up to this. She is manipulating you. Arthur closed the folder with a sharp snap. I am not finished, he said. He turned to the officers. Linda Evans, these officers have a warrant for your arrest. Arrest? Linda shrieked. Her voice cracked, losing all semblance of control. For what? Trespassing in my own home? For identity theft, bank fraud, and forgery in the 1st degree. Arthur recited the charges calmly. We have evidence that 3 years ago, before you left, you took out a second mortgage on this property by forging Robert's signature. We also have records of multiple credit cards opened in his name. And, as of this morning, a fraudulent mobile deposit of $50,000 from a trust account belonging to Charlotte Evans. I gasped. Arthur knew about the check. I monitored that account. Charlotte, Arthur said, glancing at me with a soft, apologetic look. Your father asked me to keep an eye on it. When the transfer went through this morning, I knew something was wrong. Linda looked at the officers. They were unhooking handcuffs from their belts. The metallic click was the loudest sound in the world. No, Linda screamed. She backed into the living room table, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered. No, you cannot do this. I am a mother. I did this for my children. She pointed a shaking finger at me. She gave me that check. She bribed me. It was a gift. It does not matter if she gave it to you, Arthur said coldly. You obtained it through extortion, and the fraud charges from 3 years ago are more than enough to put you away for a decade. The officers stepped forward. One of them, a tall man with a stern face, reached for Linda's arm. Ma'am, put your hands behind your back. Linda exploded. She did not go quietly. She did not weep with dignity. She fought. She swung her arm, slapping the officer's hand away. Do not touch me. Get your filthy hands off me. The officers did not hesitate. They grabbed her, spinning her around and slamming her against the wall. The sound of her body hitting the plaster made Sophie scream. Liam ran forward. Mom, stay back. Tucson, the officer barked. Liam stopped, freezing in his tracks. He watched as the handcuffs were snapped onto his mother's wrists. He watched as she writhed and kicked, her face twisted into a mask of pure, ugly hatred. She was not looking at the police. She was looking at us. You ungrateful little brats. She screamed, spittle flying from her mouth. I gave you life. I suffered for you, and this is how you repay me? You let them take me? She locked eyes with Liam. You are weak. Liam, just like your father, you are a pathetic, spineless coward. I should have left you in a basket on a doorstep. Liam recoiled as if he had been physically struck. The hope in his eyes, the desperate need for a mother's love that had blinded him for 2 days, finally died. In its place, I saw a profound, crushing realization. She did not love him. She never had. The officers dragged her toward the door. She dug her heels into the rug, bunching it up, fighting every inch of the way. Charlotte, she howled, her voice raw. Drop the charges. Tell them it was a mistake. If you let them take me, I will kill you. I swear to God. I will come back and burn this house down with you inside it. I stood by the stairs, my arms wrapped around myself. I did not look away. I owed it to the girl I used to be to watch this. I owed it to the 18-year-old who had spent 3 years terrified of this woman's return. Goodbye, Linda, I whispered. They dragged her out onto the porch. The bright sun hit her, illuminating the wild gray roots of her hair. The cheap makeup smudged around her eyes. The sheer desperation of a woman who had lived her entire life taking from others and was finally being presented with the bill. The neighbors, the Millers down the road, had stopped their truck at the end of the driveway. They were watching. The mailman was watching. Linda Evans, the woman who had always cared so much about appearances, who had lied about vacations and wealth, was being hauled into the back of a police cruiser like a common criminal. She continued to scream, even as they pushed her into the back seat. I could hear her muffled shouts through the glass. It is my money. It is mine. The officer slammed the door. The sound was final. Arthur turned to me. He looked tired. He adjusted his glasses and sighed. I am sorry it came to this. Charlotte, I tried to get here sooner, but the roads, Saojinghao Lin, are Jinghao Dayu. You came just in time. I said, my voice sounded hollow. Thank you, Arthur. He nodded. I will handle the station. I will make sure the check is returned to your account. It might take a few days, but you will get it back. He looked at Liam and Sophie. Are you kids going to be all right? I looked at them. Sophie was sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth, clutching the cheap heart necklace Linda had given her. Liam was standing by the window, watching the police car drive away. His back was rigid. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. We will be fine, I said. Arthur nodded again. He turned and walked out, closing the front door behind him. The silence that rushed back into the house was different this time. It was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of a battlefield after the last cannon has fired. The enemy was gone. The threat was neutralized, but the casualties were still lying on the field. I walked into the living room. I did not know what to do. I did not know how to be a sister anymore. I had been the warden for so long. Liam turned around from the window. His face was wet with tears, but his expression was stony. He looked at the spot on the rug where Linda had stood, where she had called him a coward. He walked over to the coffee table, the wireless headphones, the expensive gift she had given him, were sitting there. He picked them up. He looked at them for a long moment. Then, with a sudden incident, he threw them against the wall. Plastic, shattered, electronic components scattered across the floor. She called me a coward, Liam whispered. His voice broke. She said she should have left me on a doorstep. I took a step toward him. Liam, Saojinghao Ling. Jinghao Dayu. He looked at me. His eyes were red, swollen, and filled with a pain so deep it made my own heart ache. You knew, he said. You knew what she was? I nodded. I knew. Why did you not tell me? He shouted. Why did you let me believe her? Why did you let me turn against you? Because I wanted you to have a mother, I said softly. Even for a few days. I wanted you to have the fantasy. Because the reality, 小于精好灵, 2# is greater than the reality is too hard to carry. Liam shook his head. He walked over to me. He was tall, taller than me. But in that moment, he looked like a little boy. He collapsed into me. He buried his face in my shoulder and sobbed. It was a guttural, ugly sound of grief. He was not crying for the mother who had just been arrested. He was crying for the mother he never had. I wrapped my arms around him. I held him tight, supporting his weight as he shook over his shoulder. I saw Sophie. She stood up slowly. She took off the necklace. She walked to the trash can in the corner of the room and dropped it in. The metal made a tiny clink against the bottom. She walked over to us and wrapped her arms around my waist, pressing her face into my back. We stood there, the three of us, tangled together in the middle of the living room. The house was cold. The lamp was broken. The floor was covered in shattered plastic. But for the first time in 3 years, the house belonged to us, only us. The days following the arrest were a blur of gray skies and muted conversations. The adrenaline that had sustained us through the storm and the confrontation had evaporated, leaving behind a profound exhaustion that settled into our bones like damp ash. The house was quiet. It was a different kind of quiet than before. Not the tense silence of waiting for a bomb to drop, but the hollow, echoing silence of a crater after the explosion. I spent the first 2 days cleaning. I scrubbed the floors where Linda's boots had tracked in snow. I washed the sheets from the master bedroom 3 times, trying to exorcise the scent of her cheap perfume. I vacuumed the living room until the rug looked new again, erasing the spot where she had been pinned against the wall. It was a compulsive need to purify the space, to reclaim it. But no matter how much bleach I used, the memory of her screaming face remained burned onto the back of my eyelids. On the 3rd day, a letter arrived from Arthur Pendleton. It was brief and formal. Linda was being held without bail due to her flight risk and the severity of the fraud charges. The $50,000 had been successfully frozen and would be returned to my account within the week. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter. I should have felt triumphant. I had won. The money was safe. The house was safe. The monster was in a cage. But I felt nothing, just a numb, heavy emptiness in my chest. Liam walked into the kitchen. He was wearing his old hoodie, the one with the frayed cuffs. He had not touched the video games or the music since she left. He moved like a ghost, his eyes dull and averted. "Hey," I said softly, "do you want some breakfast?" "No," he muttered, opening the fridge and staring blankly at the contents. "I am not hungry." He closed the fridge and leaned against it, crossing his arms. He looked at the letter on the table. "Is that about her?" I nodded. "She is in jail." "Liam, she is not coming back." Liam let out a short, bitter laugh. Good, but his eyes betrayed him. They were swimming with confusion and hurt. He was 16 years old, trying to reconcile the image of the mother who had bought him headphones with the woman who had called him a coward. "I am sorry." "Liam," I said, "I am sorry I did not tell you the truth sooner. I thought 小于精好灵, 2# is greater than I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" Liam looked at me, his jaw tightening. By treating me like a child? By letting me think you were the villain? Do you know what I said to you? Charlotte, do you remember? I looked down at my hands. I remember. I told you I hated you. Liam whispered. I told you that you were ruining our lives. And the whole time, you were the only reason we had a roof over our heads. He pushed off the fridge and walked over to the table. He pulled out a chair and sat down opposite me. Why did you take it? He asked. Why did you take all the abuse? Why did you not just show us the papers? Show us the debts? Because Dad asked me to, I said, my voice trembling. He wanted you to have a good memory of her. He did not want you to know she was. Zou je ding houling. Twee hekje is groter dan broken. Liam shook his head. Dad was wrong. And you were wrong. You cannot build a family on lies. Char, even if they are nice lies. I reached across the table and covered his hand with mine. His hand was cold, I know. I said, I know that now. I was so scared of being like her. Zou je ding houling. 2 hash is greater than of being irresponsible. Zou je ding houling. 2 hash is greater than that. I became a tyrant instead. I shut you out. Liam looked at our hands. He did not pull away. I got a job, he said suddenly. I blinked. What? I went to the hardware store in town yesterday. Mr. Henderson said he needs someone to help with stock and deliveries on weekends. It is minimum wage. But, Zou je ding houling. 2 hash is greater than it is something. Liam, you do not have to work, I said instinctively. I have the money back. You should focus on school. No, Liam said firmly. I want to help. I am not a child. Charlotte, I live in this house too. I eat the food. I use the heat. I want to contribute. I do not want you to carry everything alone anymore. I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy who used to complain about chores was gone. In his place was a young man who had seen the ugly side of the world and decided to face it head on. Okay, I said, a lump forming in my throat. Okay, that would be Zou je ding houling. 2 hash is greater than that. Would be really helpful. The back door opened, and Sophie walked in. She was wearing her coat and boots. Her cheeks flushed pink from the cold. She was carrying a plastic bag. Where have you been? I asked, surprised. Just Zou je ding houling. 2 hash is greater than out, Sophie said evasively. She walked over to the table and dumped the contents of the bag. It was a pile of cash, wrinkled 5s, 10s, and a lot of quarters. What is this? Liam asked. I sold the necklace, Sophie said quietly. The one she gave me. I took it to the pawn shop in town. The guy said it was cheap metal, barely worth anything. But he gave me $20 for the chain, and I returned the clothes she bought me. The store took them back. She pushed the small pile of money toward me. It is $84, Sophie said. It is for the electric bill. I stared at the money. $84. It was a drop in the ocean of our expenses, but it was also the most valuable money I had ever seen. Sophie, Zou je ding houling. 2 hash is greater than, I whispered. I do not want anything from her, Sophie said, her voice shaking but resolute. I do not want her gifts. I do not want her lies. I just want us to be okay. She looked at me, her eyes wide and pleading. Are we going to be okay, Charlotte? I looked at my brother and sister. They were hurt. They were scarred. They had been forced to grow up too fast in the span of 3 brutal days. But they were here. They were sitting at this table with me, offering me their minimum wage and their pawn shop money. They were not looking for a mother anymore. They were looking for a partner. They were looking for a sister. I gathered the crumpled bills into a pile. I picked up the letter from the lawyer and folded it away. Yes, I said, we are going to be okay, but things are going to be different. Different how? Liam asked. No more secrets. I said. I stood up and walked to the drawer where I kept the ledger, the book of debts and expenses I had hidden for a year. I brought it to the table and opened it. This is exactly how much money we have, I said, pointing to the columns. This is the mortgage. This is the insurance. This is what we spend on food. Liam and Sophie leaned in. For the first time, they saw the reality of our life. They saw the tightrope I had been walking. Whoa, Liam said, tracing a line with his finger. The heating bill is insane. It is an old house. I said, we can lower it. Sophie said, we can wear more sweaters. We can seal the windows with plastic. I saw a video on how to do it, and I can pick up extra shifts during the holidays. Liam added, that should cover the grocery bill for December. I watched them. They were problem solving. They were taking ownership. The burden that had been crushing my spine for a year suddenly felt lighter, shared across 3 pairs of shoulders. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I wiped it away quickly, but Liam saw it. You okay? He asked. I am fine. I choked out. I am just Haling. 2 hash is greater than. I am really proud of you guys. Liam smirked. Do not get mushy on us. Char, we are just doing the math. Sophie smiled. A real smile. It was small and tentative, but it was there. That night, we sat in the living room. We did not watch television. We did not talk about Linda. We just sat together. Liam was reading a book for school. Sophie was sketching in her notebook. I was working on my college application essay. I looked at the prompt on my laptop screen. Describe a challenge you have overcome and how it shaped who you are. I looked at the cursor blinking on the white page. I thought about the storm. I thought about the blood in the snow. I thought about the check I had signed away. I thought about the look on Linda's face as the police car drove away. I started to type. I used to think that strength was a wall. I thought that if I built the walls high enough and thick enough, I could keep the bad things out. I thought that love was a form of protection, a way of shielding the people I cared about from the harsh winds of reality. But I was wrong. Walls do not just keep the bad things out. They keep the light out too. And in the dark, monsters can grow. Strength is not a wall. Strength is a door. It is the courage to open it, to let the cold wind in, and to trust that the people standing next to you are strong enough to weather the storm with you. I stopped typing. I looked around the room. The fire was crackling in the hearth. The house was warm. The scars were there. I could see the ghost of the broken lamp on the table. I could feel the echo of the shouting in the walls. We were not fixed. We would never be fully fixed. Linda had taken a piece of our innocence that we would never get back. But as I watched Liam turn a page and saw Sophie humming softly to herself, I realized something. She had tried to destroy us. She had tried to divide us, to conquer us. But in her greed, she had done the opposite. She had forged us into something harder, something unbreakable. We were not just a family by blood anymore. We were a family by choice. We were survivors, and that was worth more than any inheritance. The thaw came late that year. It was mid-May before the last of the dirty, compacted ice finally dissolved into the soil of the front lawn, revealing the brown, matted grass beneath. I watched the seasons change from the same kitchen window where I had watched the blizzard bury us, and it felt like I was looking at a different planet. The silence in the house was no longer hollow. It was peaceful, filled with the mundane sounds of living. the hum of the refrigerator, the scratch of Sophie's pencil on paper, the thud of Liam's basketball in the driveway. It had been 6 months since the police cars rolled away. Linda took a plea deal. Arthur told us the news over the phone on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Rather than face a jury and the mountain of evidence regarding the identity theft and the forged mortgage documents, she pleaded guilty to fraud and extortion. She was sentenced to 5 years in a federal correctional facility in Wisconsin. I did not go to the sentencing. Neither did Liam or Sophie. We signed the victim impact statements Arthur prepared for us, and we sent them into the void. We did not want to see her in an orange jumpsuit. We did not want to see if she looked remorseful or vindictive. We just wanted her gone. But removing a tumor does not mean the body is instantly healed. There is a scar. There is the phantom pain of the tissue that was cut away. I sat at the dining room table, staring at 2 envelopes. One was thick and creamy, bearing the crest of the University of Chicago. The other was thin and functional, from the University of Minnesota, Duluth. Just 20 minutes down the highway, I had been accepted to both. My dream, the one I had held on to through every sleepless night and every unpaid bill, was in the thick envelope. Chicago, a new city, anonymity, a place where I could be just a student, where no one knew that my mother was a felon and my father had died of stress. I picked up the thick envelope. I ran my thumb over the embossed seal. Then I picked up the rejection slip I had printed out earlier. I placed it inside the Chicago envelope and sealed it shut. I was not going. It was not a tragedy. It was not a martyrdom. It was simply the math of our reality. Liam was 17 now, doing well in school and working weekends, but he still needed guidance. Sophie was 15 and healing, but she still had nightmares where she woke up screaming about blood in the snow. They needed a guardian. They needed a sister who was physically present, not a voice on a video call 300 miles away. I would go to the local university. I would get my degree. It would take longer. It would be less prestigious, but I would drive home every night to this house. I would check the locks. I would pay the bills. I stood up and walked to the fireplace. I tossed the Chicago envelope into the flames. I watched the paper curl and blacken, the seal melting like wax. I felt a strange sense of relief. The dream of escaping was just that, a dream. The reality of staying was where my strength lay. There was a knock at the door. I knew who it was. Arthur had said he needed to drop off the final paperwork closing the probate on Dad's estate. I opened the door. Arthur looked older in the spring sunshine, his face lined with the weariness of a man who had seen too many broken families. "Hello, Charlotta," he said, handing me a thick manila folder. "This is it. The house is officially in your name. The accounts are settled. The $50,000 has been fully restored to your trust. Thank you, Arthur," I said, "for everything." Arthur hesitated. He looked past me into the house, checking to see if we were alone. "There is one more thing," he said. He reached into his inside pocket and pulled out a small, sealed letter. "Your father gave this to me about a week before he died. He made me promise not to give it to you until the estate was fully settled. Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling. 2# is greater than and until the situation with your mother was resolved." I took the letter. My name was written on the front in Dad's shaky, dying handwriting. "Charlotte." My heart hammered against my ribs. Arthur put a hand on my shoulder. He was a good man, Charlotte, but he was a pragmatist. He knew what was coming. Arthur turned and walked down the driveway, leaving me alone on the porch. I sat down on the swing where Dad used to smoke his pipe. I tore open the envelope. My dearest Charlotte, if you are reading this, then the storm has passed. I do not mean the weather. I mean her. I am sorry I had to leave you with this burden. I spent my last years trying to fix the holes she punched in our ship, but I knew I was running out of time. I knew that when I died, she would come back. She smells money like a shark smells blood, and she thinks I have hidden millions. I did not hide millions, Charlotte, but I did leave a trap. I set up the debt fund account specifically. I knew she would find it. I knew she would try to take it, and I knew that to take it, she would have to break the law. Again, I could have pressed charges against her years ago for the credit cards, but I was too weak. I loved her too much. Even after she destroyed me, I could not be the one to send the mother of my children to prison. So, I left that task to you. I know this is a terrible gift to give a daughter. I made you the executioner. I raised you to be tough, to be meticulous, to be controlling, because I knew you would need those weapons to defeat her. I knew you would need to be ruthless to save Liam and Sophie. Forgive me for hardening your heart, but I knew that your hardness was the only thing that would keep this family safe when I was gone. You are the captain now. Do not feel guilty for the choices you made to survive. You did exactly what I knew you would do. Love, Dad. I lowered the letter. The paper trembled in my hand. The wind rustled the new leaves on the oak trees. I sat there for a long time, processing the revelation. It was not just Linda who had manipulated us. It was Dad, too. He had orchestrated this entire scenario from the grave. He had used me as the instrument of his justice. He had groomed me to be the bad guy, the control freak, the warden, because he knew that a nice, soft girl would have been eaten alive by Linda Evans. I should have felt used. I should have felt angry, but I did not. I looked at my hands. They were steady now. I looked at the house behind me. It was standing tall, secure, debt-free, and safe. I felt a cold, sharp sense of pride. He was right. I was hard. I was calculating. I had sacrificed my dream college without a tear. I had watched my mother being dragged away in handcuffs and felt only relief. I was not the victim of a tragedy. I was the product of a war. The front door opened. Liam and Sophie stepped out onto the porch. They were squinting in the sunlight. Who was that? Liam asked. Just Arthur, I said, folding the letter and putting it in my pocket. Just finishing the paperwork. Sophie sat down next to me on the swing. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Liam sat on the railing, looking out at the green lawn. So, it is really over? Sophie asked softly. I looked at them, my soldiers, my siblings. Yes, I said, it is over. I put my arm around Sophie and squeezed. I looked at the horizon, where the road disappeared into the distance. I knew that life would bring other storms. There would be other debts, other crises, other winters. But as I sat there, feeling the weight of the house keys in my pocket and the steel in my spine, I knew one thing for certain. I was my father's daughter, and this house would never fall.